you've got to pull in experts every now and again, you're not going to get into trouble with guest blogging. As long as you're not just selling links under another name, and as long as you're not filling content with guest blogs that, let's face it, half the time it's almost a rewrite of something that guest blogged on 6 other places. You're in that thing of near duplicate content. Not that duplicate content in itself is an absolute killer. There's still so many sites out there. Anyone who's a blogger knows that there's an awful lot of sites out there scraping content, and that doesn't kill them. It doesn't matter how much some sites get scraped, they're not going to suffer in the results. So that's not a major issue. As for content, content has always been one of the major things. If you try and sell something and you don't use the right words to portray the product, it's not going to work, especially in a virtual environment. Your ability to show images of the product, but more importantly, to tell the story of the product, to talk about it in detail, to guess what questions I'm going to have about it, and what concerns, and what use I want to put it to, and have covered in your copy that it does this, that it can do that, that these things are possible. Well, of course, you haven't put your product online. You've only you've got a catalogue listing that doesn't describe the product. You've got to put your copy out. Copy is the purple cow most of the time. I think copywriting is still one of the most underrated skills. There's far too much reliance on shortcuts. Again, even in blogging, if I read another 10 steps to this, or 8 reasons why, do you know what I mean? That thing where it starts more than anything else.
Did you freeze up on me?
Don? Sorry, where did you lose me?
Oh, the 10 best things, or the 10, Yeah, no, I agree. It's there's too many people trying to do too many shortcuts because I think the internet is getting saturated. Personally, I don't think there's focus, not even in companies. I mean, companies aren't even focusing on their own message, let alone syndications, affiliates, blogging. I mean, it's just this conglomerate. Yeah, we're saying it's evolutionary and it's getting better, and sure it is. But at the end of the day, sometimes too much information coming out of a company can dampen a quote-unquote campaign. And I've seen it. I've seen it over and over again where, you put out 3 posts per day, or some I don't know what search engine marketing. I mean, how many posts a day do they put out? It's working for them, but they also have quality content. But so again, there is got to be a balance for the smaller businesses.
It's one of those things again. I'd say there's a lot of difference between blurb, data, and information, and a lot of people don't realise the difference. And it's only information when the user is informed by it.
Exactly.
You've got to be customer-centric. If you're saying something because you want to get the message out there, you're going about it completely the wrong way, it won't work. What you have to do is think of who's already out there looking for a solution and give them the answer, instead of trying to TV and adverts right now. The exact reason that they've got spam filters is they don't want that. Take a clue. They are telling you, we hate this. Instead, look for the people who are already looking for what you can do and give them the answer they're already looking for. That's what search engine marketing was all about. It was the ability to attract somebody by what they were asking for, instead of just telling everyone and hoping that if you throw enough mud, someone will stick.
Well, that's that's marketing 101. Marketing 101 has always said, don't sell the customer what you have, sell the customer what he wants, what he needs.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a precept that has been forgotten by a lot of people. Of course,
that
frankly,
translates right back into copy.
Right.
If you're not writing the copy they want, but instead you're trying to do something, You've missed that again.
Yep. Well, that works into so many areas of the internet. Social media. You can't just sit out there and broadcast. You need to communicate. You need to interact and establish relationships. You can't just when you've got as many millions of people involved in internet marketing that don't have a clue about what marketing is or how to go about it. It's natural that there's gonna be an awful lot of pollution.
Well, and then it's also, I mean, at the end of the day, good copywriting gives you branding, gives you authority, gives you the story, if you will. I mean, look at what Apple did with excellent content. It wasn't, I want an Apple. It was, look at what Apple makes me feel like. Look at who I am when I use Apple. I'm cool. I'm this. We were just talking about that, Doc and I, the other day. What was it about the Washington Post or the New York Times? Going back to print and how exciting that is, for us old timers, because I still love doing the New York Times crossword puzzle. But the fact is that what they're doing is they're using the internet to attract selling print. And which I think is brilliant, because there's a lot of people out there that it's what and how it makes them feel to actually buy that printed newspaper and have it show up at their front door. And as much as we think digital marketing is the end all, there's still a lot of connecting the dots with the real world. Print, I don't think, is ever going to leave. Go ahead.
It's just like myself. I happen to collect old LPs and books.
The crank type?
No, not quite. They're actually plugged in the wall, okay?
Oh. Okay.
Although I do have a crank type in the living room that I rebuilt, okay? An old gramophone. But, no, I like, I go to a bookstore, I'm in Seventh Heaven. I just, I like finding those old 1932 first editions of anything.
Huckleberry Finn.
I don't give a damn if it's an old legal manual. I like books.
Right.
And sometimes I'm attracted by the binding, sometimes it's the cover, sometimes it's the content. But, to me, a Kindle is never going to replace the joy of owning a book. Okay? But that's me. I'm not probably
it's not just
a slice of the major market. But there are people the same way with the New York Times,
Years ago, in one of the threads on Creator site, talking about copywriting, one of the examples I used was describing to somebody that favourite old book you've got. The one, the amount of times you've gone through it. There's that slightly papery smell, but there's something really unique about it, and the whole experience of that book, as well as the content, is all part of it. And this is what I was saying. As I'm saying that, you notice how the words I use are conveying that meaning to you, and we're getting that connection because you know exactly what I mean. You're feeling it. You're almost smelling the book yourself. You can smell
it. And memories are rushing
copywriting.
Back. Sure.
That's copywriting.
Sure.
And if somebody is just talking about something, but they're not evoking those feelings and evoking that connection with somebody, they're not copywriting.
Right.
They're just writing.
Exactly.
Right. And I think that's the difficult part, and that's where I think a lot of the misconnection happens between client and SEO company or copywriters, is they don't understand what the voice is, who the company is. They look at it as technical. Okay, we need to throw in some meta tags, we need to do some on-page, we need to, and here it is. Here you go. You're going to be successful. And it might work because their site was so horrible that anything that you did to it might help. But at the end of the day, it's not long-lasting. It's not going to keep the traffic coming in. I mean, you might get them in spurts. It happens, especially if you use PPC and you know what you're doing. But it's real important. I believe it's all about storytelling.
Yes.
Your call to actions, your landing page. How is it connected, and what does it mean for them to have gone from one click to what the actual product is to the third click being the shopping cart? I mean, you know, or should it be what Amazon did, which was with the one click through? I mean, that was brilliant. Look at how much more money I don't even remember the numbers, but they quadrupled their sales overnight with that one click through.
Yep.
Amazon
are one of the greatest successes commercially
sure.
of the web. They've given us more things to copy and think about than anybody else, and there's still things you can do that they haven't quite got yet. But you know, let's look at it. In 1998, everyone was commenting on the news that Amazon was down to its last 1.08 billion. It had a spending rate on marketing, particularly banners and ads and things like that, that basically meant that would last them 9 months and they'd be broke. But Amazon knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
First of all, we'll talk about marketing in that they needed the volume. Why did they need the volume? Because companies are able to get discounts from manufacturers if you've got enough volume. If I can buy 10 million units from the manufacturer, he gives me a much better deal than the guy who's buying 100 units. We saw this in Create a Site with a woman who was selling a piece of software. The price she bought it from the manufacturer was the price Amazon were able to sell it at with markup, because the manufacturer was providing it so much cheaper to them. So, okay, volume is one thing. They needed that volume, so they were prepared to spend to get that customer base. Why else did they need volume? Well, they needed records of what customers were buying, because you've got that people who were interested in this also bought this, and this.
Sure.
The idea of cross-selling successfully, and what you notice is once you've bought just 3 things from Amazon, those 10 suggestions are damn good. There's at least 2 of them you do want. There's a couple of them you've already got, and there's only maybe 1 or 2 that you haven't. And the more transactions you do with Amazon, the better it gets at predicting.
But they've taken care of that. They've given you a wish list.
Yeah.
And one thing. Go ahead.
It was even more to suggest that, look, you don't even have to just buy this yourself. Now you can pass your friends.
Right.
And other people can impulse buy things they don't even want, but you do.
Right.
Brilliant. That was to increase customers again. Yeah.
Sure. I'd love to see the data on that. I bet you it's just booming. I bet it's booming.
And they're dealing with some big data there too.
Oh, sure.
The only thing about Amazon's that I find frustrating, I've gone on there and I see the same thing on eBay as well. I went a few months ago. I bought my wife a little Bluetooth speaker for her tablet, and I ordered the thing. I received it. She's using the dickens out of it. Loves it. Yet every time I go in there, I see recommendations for 6 other types of Bluetooth speakers. Hello, I bought one. Right. This doesn't mean I'm opening up a damn store to sell Bluetooth speakers. I've got one. They, I don't know, they're missing it in that regard, I think. But
it's still hit and miss in certain.
But they are offering me lots of Bluetooth items, some of which attract my attention. So.
Yeah, their best success is definitely with the book. Recommending the books based on what you bought, what other people who like this book bought. That's spot on, absolutely. Where it comes to consumer electronics, of course it starts to fall apart. Everyone's got their, completely different setups, and what one person bought in this order is not the order that somebody else is going to buy those things in. It's much better with the books. But there's something to learn there for every company. It's amazing how many people have them. One of the things I spoke about years ago was a thing I call landing paths. Getting away from the idea, a landing page, and that's great. But a landing path is where you look at the keywords somebody came in on because it's already telling you what they're interested in. Quick example. You've got a type of widget that you make. Now, you use a particular process that makes these lightweight. They're lightweight because but of course also the weight is light, the quality is there. And because the materials are less, it's cheaper. Now, this means they are cheap widgets, they are lightweight widgets, and they are quality widgets. Those are three completely different types of customer. If somebody is searching for quality widgets and they land on your page that's all about how cheap your widgets are, you've made them question.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, if they're looking for lightweight widgets, you know, their particular need is for a lightweight widget, and you're talking about the high quality, they start to wonder, well, okay, yeah, it's good that they're high quality, but has this added to the weight? Are they not the lightest weight? So you need to understand how people are coming into your site. Your site should be dynamic and reacting to this and saying, right, if somebody has first of all expressed an interest in the fact they're lightweight, then we'll put everything else in context of that. We'll talk about the quality in context of the fact that we're lightweight. You know, these are the very best quality while still being the most lightweight you can buy. Your site should be dynamic and taking into account what they've already expressed an interest in. Everyone can do this. You can even do it with a static site by early on having three paths through your site. Think of them as directory structures, one of which is lightweight, one of which is quality, one of which is cheap. Make them select which is their primary interest early, and then that puts them in that directory tree, and from then on everything is about the other qualities in context of that. You're keeping their primary interest in mind. Nobody's doing this. This is something, again, that dates back to that idea of dynamic optimization that I spoke about that the adult industry presented to me.
Yeah, from a technical standpoint, that may be beyond the capabilities of your average mom and pop, but it is something that is certainly being done on the more sophisticated sites with great success. You know, when you can grab them by the search term and steer them that way. I mean, basically what it is, it's extended A/B testing. You know, we do that all the time in A/B testing. We determine, you know, which one did you click on? That's where I'm going to take you by whatever your CTA was. That determines what your result is going to be. And that's essentially what you're doing. You're simply taking A/B testing and making it into a dynamic environment.
Yeah, I mean, look at heat maps. I love using heat maps.
Oh yeah.
You know, on top
His
of
metrics for the win.
Oh yeah, I mean that to me is like porn. But it does. It gives you the SEO more tools to measure right then and there. You don't have to, you know, wait for the quarter to come up in order to do a report and tweak and change and, you know, update. So yeah, dynamic optimization is definitely in the cards for any company that wants to stay updated.
You know, we're coming up on the hour, folks. I think that this is a topic we probably could have gone on for 3 or 4 and never run out of information. But
well, if the listeners let you know, I'm sure we can arrange another chat if they'd like us to carry on.
Well, absolutely. You know, I think, you know, I took a course not too long ago on Coursera about Internet history, and obviously it was of a historical nature. It was an extremely interesting course, but it never touches on the aspects of commercialization in detail. And you know, one of the things that I found interesting you shared with us earlier was the fact that you know, Google gets an awful lot of credit for things that they didn't really do, that had been pioneered long before Google. They simply refined it a bit.
Likewise, very little really for what they are amazing at, which is their own operating system. Their cluster network was one of the very first out there. Everyone else was using big servers. They introduced the cluster network and paved the way. And
is still phenomenal. You know, the scale that they managed to achieve with that cluster still boggles my imagination. Yes.
Oh, amazingly. I mean, the amount of data that Google processed that they don't.
Yeah.
It's something to sort of think about. Is you know, people wonder how Google gets some of the data it does. Well, you know, of course, we know for years they were providing the toolbar with PageRank because everyone that was collecting that was telling Google every page you went to, it had to report the URL back to get a PageRank score. So you were giving Google your click-through data of sites you didn't own. They were getting real on how people were using the sites. if you don't think Chrome is doing the same, you may be dealing with a slightly different Google to the rest of us. Google, I know, collects data like mad. They just can't help it. They can't resist it.
They're voracious for data, yeah.
Yes. You have to look at a recent story a couple of months ago about how Google had used big data in recruitment. You can still do big data recruitment and find some stories about this, but one of the Google guys had said, we studied the data from thousands of interviews, whether it was for internal promotions or for recruiting new staff, to look at what really did have correlation with success and what didn't. And, all the things that we used to think were so important on the interview, actually, it doesn't make that much difference, especially, the brain teasers they used to do. No correlation between success at that and success in the job. As some of the smart moves in interviews don't tend to correlate with success. Now, if they're applying that kind of data mining just to every single recruitment meeting there ever is, what do you think they're not applying data to? Another one. Do you remember the little story a while back where Google said you could predict the opening weekend box office takings by a certain set of searches?
Right.
How wide are they looking at data to spot that correlation?
Tremendously.
If you don't think Google put a lot of thought into data and look incredibly widely for what it correlates to, we're not dealing with the same Google as the rest of us. Google's a very, very clever company.
Well,
and that system of theirs, that network, has so much computing power. It's frightening.
When you and I were discussing this the other day on the phone, I said that I agree Google is getting more credit than they deserve in some realms, but I also think that people are not giving them enough credit in others. And the one thing that I see, I get heavily involved in technical SEO from a semantic standpoint. Now, semantic web is a passion of mine that I hope to live to see. And I believe firmly that they are much, much further along in that process than what most people give them credit for.
Yes.
Buzzwords get dropped, LDA, LSI, which is, a lot of it is just plain crap. It's not scalable. But the bottom line is there is an ability, when you have the kind of processing power and the kind of engineering power that Google has at their disposal, I have no doubt that they can determine on a scalable basis what the intent of a document is, okay? And we're not talking about synonyms. We're talking about sentiment to a degree, okay? A minor degree perhaps, somewhat limited, but I do believe that they're not being given enough credit in that regard. And for about 2 years now, I have been doing my writing on that basis. And it allows me to write more to the reader and consider less the search engine, which gives improves my readability. It improves the ability to convey information in an engaging fashion, and I'm seeing that it's also allowing me to achieve better engagement with the search engine. Now, it's correlation, but it's heavy correlation, and I just can't ignore it.
Yeah, and again, I think some of this, what we were saying earlier about John Kleinberg and the Clever Project, this is stuff that couldn't be implemented. It's far too data intensive, right? Except Google found a way of doing something similar with a shortcut in several different steps, and now we've got some kind of error flux going on, which technically is impossible by the old means. It means that what they've done is found correlations. We're back to this data correlation thing. Google's always looking at what correlates. And it could well be that there is a signal elsewhere that's letting them know when something is semantically meaningful in a way that those calculations couldn't tell.
Exactly.
Cause and effect. If you can spot the effect, you know the cause is there.
Well, it's an interesting study of where we have gotten to date. And of course, one of my other passions is trying to figure out where we will be tomorrow. You know, what's going to happen in the future with search? You know, is a semantic web that Tim Berners-Lee daydreamed about so many years ago, is that ever actually going to happen? Personally, I believe it is, and I don't believe it's going to be 50 years down the road. I suspect that if I can curtail my bad habits even just a little bit, I might actually be alive to see it. But you know, it's going to be an interesting study there too. And your perspective, Ammon, from the marketer's standpoint, from the commercialization of the web, it brings a new perspective to it. And I think it's important to be able to market tomorrow. You've got to understand how marketing came about and how it got here. So we appreciate very much your input. Been enjoyable.
Thank you very much.
You may be invited on here again, my friend. You know, like you say, if the viewers like it, we may do a follow-up and dig deeper into this.